Isekai, a term that has come to denote a subgenre of anime in which the main character is pulled into another world. Anime within this subgenre have been popping up absolutely everywhere over the past few years, and while the roots of this genre reach as far back as shows like Dot Hack Sign and Now and Then Here and There, or even all the way back to Aura Battle Dunbine, the isekai explosion we know today was most likely spurred by the insane success of Sword Art Online in 2012. Since SAO's premiere, we've experienced an unparalleled influx of isekai-centric anime series. Log Horizon, Outbreak Company, No Game No Life, Gate, Konosuba, Grimgar, Overlord, ReZero, Tanya the Evil, the list goes on and on and on. In the past summer season alone, we had 3 separate shows about a character being transported to a physically different fantasy world, 1 show about a protagonist interacting with a dream world, 1 show reversing the trope with characters from other worlds being transported to our own, and a workplace comedy in which the project being worked on is a video game about being transported to another world, and there are already plenty more to come in the near future. This level of genre saturation in such a short time span has resulted in fans becoming exhausted by this trope, with the 3 main isekai shows from the past season receiving well below average reception from both fans and critics. Even publishers in Japan are starting to get sick of this trend, with Kadokawa going so far as to ban any submissions containing isekai elements from an upcoming light novel contest. Personally, I was getting sick of the genre at the start of 2014, but the mostly competent execution of Grimgar and the fantastic parody elements of Konosuba gave me hope that the genre was finding new ways to innovate for the better. Then ReZero happened and I had to take that statement back immediately, but we'll get into that in a different video. Currently, however, it seems we've returned to the genre being stale and uninteresting once again. Isekai Shokudo, while a fun concept, failed to hold my attention due to its contradicting tones, which you can hear more about in my video from a couple weeks ago. And In Another World with My Smartphone easily had one of the worst opening episodes of anything from last season. However, it was Knights and Magic that actually hooked my attention in some way. Not because it's a good isekai show or because the title's grammar makes the English major in me convulse with rage, although it does definitely do that, but rather because it's a perfect example of how isekai has begun to ruin what could be perfectly acceptable new IPs. The most confounding thing about Knights and Magic is that if you skip the first 100 seconds of episode 1, just the first 100 seconds, you would have almost no idea that it was an isekai series at all, aside from very brief flashes later in the episode. Those first 100 seconds give us an introduction to a genius programmer who is tragically killed in an accident, but the vast majority of this first episode focuses on him being reincarnated as a young child in a fantasy world that has mech suits fighting giant bug monsters in a setting with medieval aesthetics and magic. Take out the isekai elements entirely and Starship Troopers meets Breakblade meets Arslan Senki sounds like a really fun idea for a new show. But it's not just that the isekai elements are entirely unnecessary. I could at least try to overlook it if that were the case. But in this instance, the isekai elements are also actively hurting the story and making it less interesting because it tries to give reasons for plot points and character traits that don't even need reasons in the first place. The protagonist, Kurata, was an otaku while he was alive in our world and had an extreme fondness for model kits and mecha, and the anime uses this point to explain why Ernesti, the young boy who Kurata reincarnates as, is so obsessed with giant robots. But was that really necessary? Do we really have to explain why a young boy would love giant robots? I'm pretty sure you could just write Ernesti is a young boy who loves giant robots and everyone would just believe you. If you really have to give an explanation though, then there are 1,000 better options besides wasting our time on an isekai plot that means nothing to the story. Maybe he was saved by a mech pilot in his youth and grew up admiring those who pilot mechs. Or maybe his father was an esteemed mech pilot and he wanted to grow up to be just like him. What's that? Both of those elements are already present in the story, thus making him a mech otaku in his past life entirely redundant? Well, that's certainly weird. Wait, there's more? You're saying that both of these traits are also present in one of Weekly Shonen Jump's most beloved protagonists? What a coincidence that these attributes could be found in other critically acclaimed characters. Later on in the first episode, we see Ernesti constantly pushing himself to be better at magic and finding new ways to get better quicker, resulting in a scene where he modifies his staff to fire like a rifle for quicker reaction time and better accuracy. And of course, the anime's explanation for this is that he knew about guns from his past life, and so he was able to apply his knowledge of them here. But isn't that, well, boring? The show kind of treats him as a genius amongst his peers, but really he just has access to information that nobody else does, allowing him to get ahead faster. Wouldn't it have been much cooler if he really was a genius without all this past knowledge stuff and he discovered these mechanics on his own? Show him peering down the side of his staff like it's a rifle barrel and have him make the realization that this improves his aim dramatically. But then he realizes that this makes it a bit more difficult to fire, so he devises a new ignition mechanism similar to a trigger to remedy the problem. Genius is a thing that exists, and an anime based on a light novel of all things being scared to write a main character that's just a genius is actually kind of baffling. If you take out the isekai elements entirely, Knights and Magic is actually a somewhat competent series with a fun setting and endearing main characters. Hardly anime of the year material, but enjoyable enough. However, it's those isekai elements that take it from mostly competent to somewhat difficult to recommend. Just like every other oversaturated genre before it, people are getting sick of isekai. If I weren't compelled to try out every single new anime that airs each season, I might have skipped over this show entirely because it makes itself out to be an isekai series in its synopsis. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who actually did skip over it for that very reason. In Knights and Magic, isekai is barely a significant trope at all. Rather, it's just a gimmick. A gimmick that was most likely used to pitch the original light novel for publication in January of 2013, just after the peak of SAO fever. And I wouldn't be surprised in the least bit if it were the sole purpose for those isekai elements. It sure feels like it is, at least. Let's just hope that this is the last new IP whose potential is killed by the plague of isekai. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm almost finished with all of the stuff from the summer season, and I have a ton of new ideas for scripts, so stay tuned for those in the future. Also, next week is going to be my Halloween special, so get ready for a good old-fashioned spooking. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that little notification bell so you can stay up to date on all my latest content. Share this video around with people you think might be interested. Leave a comment below about what you thought and other topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Check out my written content over at Digital Fox Media, and don't forget to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.